Ferguson, and I hope you are well. Hope life is good. Oh boy, and I hope everyone has an amazing weekend, um, and you're able to thrive with your life. Now, as I get the ball rolling here, I want to put you in a position where everything I'm going to share with you about this thing called the Carb Threshold Index makes sense. Now, before we get started, again, my name is Robert Ferguson. If you're new to me, I've been referred to as America's Fat Loss Coach, author, nutritionist, fitness conditioning coach, a guy who's been in the space of weight loss for a good amount of time. I've done 2 evidence-based clinical proven studies that our methodology does exactly what we claim it does. We did that with Aetna Insurance, which was very large, over 1,000 people that participated. And we also did another study not long ago with a big healthcare company in Pennsylvania. And the outcomes were very, very clear that this methodology or our methodology works. There really isn't anything that I've seen that's better than it. And I'm just being very real. And anyone who has experienced it knows what I'm talking about. So if you are someone who's catching this live or even catching the replay, make a comment in the comment area. Share this with other people, because what I'm going to share today won't take long, but it will give you additional insight into how you can maximize your ability to not only improve overall health, but to be more efficient when it comes to both releasing body fat, getting rid of excess body fat, and not gaining weight. And there's a lot of us that don't want to gain weight, right? Because no one really talks about that. And it's interesting because the very first weight loss book I wrote was called Fat That Doesn't Come Back. And that was interesting because it was kind of like, it wasn't the book that's going to get you there necessarily because of the title, but it's the book that's going to keep you there. And no one really had interest in that at the time. Right? People want something that they want to lose weight now. So anyway, bringing up the fact that I wrote that book, Fat That Doesn't Come Back, going back to when I got into the space of weight loss, and this is all going to help the carb threshold score make sense, like what it is and why we actually came up with it a little over 11 years ago. When I got into the world of weight loss, I believe that what we were offering will work for everybody. And for the most part, we were doing a lot of one-on-one coaching. And when you do one-on-one coaching, you're able to really customize that experience for that person. And then fast forward, I wrote another book called Conquering the Munchie Monster. Then I did an infomercial product. And when you do an infomercial product, same as like a book, you're creating something that will work for the majority of people. And we put it out there. And so that was the first time I had the opportunity to scale my work internationally. And millions and millions and millions of dollars were earned from or generated from that program. I learned a whole bunch and continue moving forward. I wrote another book, but then I started meeting people. And this was around 2010. I was doing a national tour and people recognized me, and I would go and do these seminars. And we were doing about 20 seminars like this a year. And I would have someone come up to me after a while, right? Because you're talking to people who are new to it. Every once in a while, someone shows up and they go, wow, I really enjoyed your program. It helped me lose this much weight. And that's great. But then I started meeting these people in different cities that had a lot of things in common that were telling me that they have been following my program, which at the time was called Food Lovers Fat Loss. They were making the fat burning meals. They were doing everything right, but they were not losing weight. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking they're not doing the program. There's something they're not doing. Well, after traveling around and meeting, a good amount of people like this, I decided, you know what? Let me dive in. And so I went to PubMed and I started doing some research, and I came across 3 studies. And these 3 studies, I'm going to show you a picture of it. And I hope you can see this. We're all based on people eating a certain amount of calories. And the only difference was the percentage of macros. right? So for instance, across the board in each one of these 3 studies, 20% of the calories that people were consuming was made up of protein. In the first one, as you can see, 60% was made up of carbohydrates and 20% fat. And when you look at table 2 in the second study, the protein was the same, but they brought the carbs down. And when they brought the carbs down, they increased the fat. And in the third one, you can see that protein is the same, but the carbs were about the same as the second one, and the fat was, really close. Now, if you look underneath in table 1, the focus there was looking at insulin sensitivity. And certain people doubled their weight loss when they ate more carbohydrates. Okay, so I'm going to say that again because sometimes people don't hear me when I say that. Some people lose weight more efficiently when they eat more carbs. And if you know the methodology, I'm talking fast carbs. And I have worked with quite a few people over the years and had that personal experience. And so to come across a study that highlighted it was awesome. And then I came across another study, totally different company, different university. And they discovered that some people will double their weight loss if they eat fewer carbs. So I hope you guys are getting what I'm saying. When you look at insulin, which we know a lot about, and we believe that insulin is the foundation for why so many people are having problems, not just with losing weight, but with many autoimmune challenges, inflammation, migraines, blood pressure, cholesterol. I mean, insulin plays a huge role, and unfortunately, it doesn't get enough attention. I mean, it's starting to, but nowhere near where we're taking it. Well, if you look at table 2, when those people were eating more carbs, they weren't losing weight. But when they brought their carbs down, increased their fat, protein stayed the same, they doubled their weight loss. And then you can see with the third table, which this study was paid for by Jenny Craig, which is sad to me because they never talk about it. I mean, it didn't help their program, but it was a good study because it was right in alignment with table 2 study, where people experienced better weight loss because they were insulin resistant. So the first thing that you want to know when it comes to the carb threshold score and the role that it plays is that there are people who are insulin resistant, and we have 7 levels of that. And then there are people who are insulin sensitive. If you are insulin resistant, all that means is that you have cells in your body that are not working as efficient as they used to. And the resistance starts to build up in different places. It could be muscle cells, it could be liver cells, it could be fat cells. But insulin is not working as efficient. And it gets worse and worse and worse, unfortunately. But I'm not going to go into detail there. And there's levels of insulin resistance, right? So I may have someone who's extremely high when I first start working with them. We get them down to where they're extremely low. And then we can get them to where they're insulin sensitive, meaning insulin is working great. So the first thing you want to understand is that there is insulin resistance and there is insulin sensitivity. And in table 1, these people who are insulin sensitive doubled their weight loss when they wanted to lose weight. They doubled their weight loss when they ate more carbs. If you look at table 2 and table 3, these people had insulin resistance. So they lost weight best when they ate fewer carbs. So far, so good? Okay. Now, what are carbs? Well, carbs come in a whole bunch of forms, right? Plant-based, manufactured, processed. But bread, pasta, of course, most people look at that as carbs, but also broccoli, asparagus, they're carbs also. Fruit is carbs, and then alcohol we categorize as a carbohydrate, even though it's alcohol. And we look at, in our program, we look at carbs not as bad, but fast carbs, which are fine, and then we have slow carbs. And once people start to understand the difference between the two, they're able to eat foods in a combination, right, or create this composition on their plate that can put them in a position where they can maximize their ability, their desire to lose weight. Okay, so let's take a look at what eating could look like. So here is table 1. When I said this person is insulin sensitive. So when you know what your carb threshold score is, and one of the reasons why you want to get it is that we can tell you immediately what your level of insulin sensitivity is, or what your level of insulin resistance is. So we know that if you're insulin sensitive, we're going to get some of our best outcomes when your meals look like this. It's like I shared a story the other day where I had 2 clients that I'm working with, a husband and a wife, and in the beginning of working with them, they were what we refer to as a carb burner. They primarily burn carbs for energy, whereas you ideally want to be a fat burner so that you primarily burn fat for energy. Well, they could not eat like this, what you're seeing with table 1, when I met them. But now they can eat like this and not gain a pound, because they went from being insulin resistant to insulin sensitive. So that's the good news, is that you can always get back to where you most want to be. So here's an example of what those meals would look like. And if you understand how we create fat burning meals, this will make more sense. And if you don't, then that's another reason maybe you want to, connect with us. You know what I'm saying? So then I'm going to skip over to this table 3, where they were insulin resistant. And these people are eating a lot of meals that look like this. So you can see that in the first meal over here that you have fast carbs, but you're just not eating as many fast carbs. And people who ate like this were able to maximize. And then you have the group that eats primarily like this. So let's say you have someone who's insulin sensitive and they wanted to lose weight and they ate like this. They won't drop as much weight because they're not eating enough carbs. Woo! Game changer right there. It says it all. It says everything. Now, the good news is that you can be insulin resistant and again work your way up to being insulin sensitive. And that's where it all changes. So when I discovered all of this, I made a decision to do more work. And in doing more work, we had created something called carb stepping. Then we got better than that because that was very tedious. And we got to this place where if I got certain data from you, like if I know your age, if I know your height, if I know your weight, if we know your fasting glucose, which today you can go buy a glucose monitor at Walmart. So that means tomorrow morning we can get this basic data from you. We put it into our system, the formula that we have in place, and it spits out and it tells us what your carb threshold score is. And once we know what your score is, it also will tell us what your level of insulin resistance is, or if you're insulin sensitive. And then that score also tells us if you are primarily burning fat or if you're primarily burning carbs. Now, I have doctors who are reaching out and want to use this for their patients. I have nutritionists who are contacting me. I have that aren't even trained by me. I have personal trainers who use this for their clients. And so we decided, when I say we, Barbara, Chris, and I, we decided to put in even more energy, and we created something called the TriBioFix. And there's a link there. You can learn more about it. But a TriBioFix, you don't even have to be a client of mine. You may have worked with me in the past and go, you know what, I don't want coaching with Robert, but I would like to know what my numbers are. And then once a month, you can check your numbers. And so we're making it extremely affordable for people because it's going to be a game changer. Because once you get that report and you have your carb threshold score, it's all customized specifically to you. Then it's just a matter of you just doing it. And then at the end of the month, let's say you're starting to feel pretty good, your numbers are getting better, you can do it again. And you'll see like, oh, my carb threshold score went up. And if this carb threshold score went up, that means that you move the dial from, let's say, being extremely high insulin resistance, and maybe you're now high insulin resistance. And that feels pretty good as you are transitioning, right, to the place where you want to be. And then we can all see the transformation. So we transition just because we can have a strong baseline. Now, there's a lot of people out there with fatty liver. There's a lot of people who are insulin resistant, don't know it. They may have really good fasting glucose. Let me say that again. You could have perfect fasting glucose, but be insulin resistant. I mean, we've changed the game. If you really want to get to know how this works, then I don't know what you're waiting on. Because as we mature in life, more and more of you, as you mature, that means as you get older, will discover that losing weight the way you lost weight at 20 is more challenging now. And then most people will say, well, it's my metabolism. You may have a trainer or a nutritionist or somebody you're working with, because they're just going with the knowledge they know. And they may say, yeah, your metabolism slows. But we know scientifically, through quite a few studies, the metabolism does not slow. Now, your total daily energy expenditure slows for a whole bunch of reasons, but your metabolism doesn't. What we do know is that most people will go from being a fat burner to becoming a carb burner. And if you try to lose weight the way you lost weight as a fat burner and you're a carb burner, it ain't going to work. So then you're going to be thinking, it's my thyroid. It's got to be something. It's got to be something crazy. Now, I have a couple people right now that are with me live, and they're asking me some questions. And the questions are around, why don't more people know about this? Well, number one, I've been working on this for over 11 years, and that's a long time. And number two, we're just now making this report available. Like, so the clients that I have, that's just part of their deal. If I'm coaching you, you don't pay anything extra. You just we go over your report and we keep it moving. But for someone that I'm not coaching, which is a good amount of people, then they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I want to get that report. I want to get my TriBioFix done. And then they pay a small fee and they get it. And then it tells them exactly where they are and what they can do to improve from where they are. Now, I brought up those questions and I'm almost done. Okay. And if you have any questions, you're catching this live, post it in the comments. Please share, like. If you're on YouTube, if you got questions, just throw them out there. And if I can answer them, I will live. And if I can't answer them live, I can come back and catch it on the replay and answer your questions. But the questions that I'm getting is, okay, you're talking a lot about insulin, but doctors aren't even looking at that. And you're right, they're not. Now, the day will come where they will. And there are a small pocket of doctors that are getting this, because I talk to a lot of them. And that is that the focus needs to be on insulin response and not glucose response. And when you went to the doctor last, I'm willing to bet anyone who's listening, if you look at your lab report, you are not going to see insulin response, but you're going to see glucose response. You're going to see your hemoglobin A1C. Yep, you can nod, you can hit a number one. Yep, you're right, Robert, you're right. They'll tell you about that, and they'll tell you about your fasting glucose when you go in, if they check for that. But they are not going to tell you about your fasting insulin. And insulin is the problem. It's not your glucose. If you improve the insulin response, the glucose will be better. If you keep focusing on the glucose and you're fixated on the glucose and you're fixated on the hemoglobin A1C and you're not focusing on the insulin, why do you think we have so many more people constantly coming down with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes? Some people going from type 2 diabetes to type 1 diabetes. Then there's type 3 diabetes that's becoming more and more popular. It's getting worse because no one is going ground zero. They're not going to the source. And if you don't go ground zero, what happens, right? If you don't reverse the cause, insulin is the cause, not the glucose. Glucose is a symptom. And doctors aren't talking about this. And if you're my client, or if you had a doctor, you can get on the phone. I will get on, and once I get on the phone, they get it. And they'll go, yeah, you're right. Insulin is what we need to focus on. So the goal is to improve that. That means that's reversing the cause. If you don't reverse the cause, you will chase the effects. If you don't reverse the cause, you will chase the effects, and you will never catch up to the effects. Man, that's good. You will never catch up with the effects. And the majority of people who want to lose weight, the majority of people who really want to improve their health, they're chasing effects. They're looking at symptoms. They're not reversing it. So in the last year, we've had 8 people 100% reverse their type 2 diabetes. We have over 50 people, I've actually quit counting, since February 1st of last year, get off metformin. We have over 30 people that are no longer taking blood pressure medication. And all of these people continue to eat carbs. The difference is that they're now more educated. They understand the importance of the composition of food on your plate. They understand that calories do count, but counting them is pointless. There is an alarming low level of metabolic health, and more people are aware of it now than ever because they've heard of terms like comorbidities. And unfortunately, most people, and this isn't a dig, I'm just being clear, really can't even explain to you what that word means. It's kind of like going in and getting your blood pressure checked. They don't understand the top number, the low number, systolic and diastolic. They hear you, they look at the cholesterol, but they don't know those numbers. And then the ones who know the numbers, they get caught up on chasing the effects, and they never win. Well, there's a new sheriff in town, you guys, and it's called the TriBioFix. And if you want to learn more about it, reach out to us. If you're a client, you know I got you covered. If you used to be a client and you want to use this kind of information to help you move forward, you know I got you. You can always reach out to me and I'll help you out. We'll send you in the right direction. But we're very excited about this. I believe it is a game changer, and I'm thankful to Barbara, my co-host and partner, and she's a coach who's been doing extremely well. So big shout out to Barbara. She helped me put this thing together. But it literally is 11 years of research, 11 years of, and a lot of you who know me and have worked with me, you remember when I was doing carb stepping, because I knew it wasn't protein causing the problem and it wasn't fat. It had to be carbs. And then I didn't want to demonize carbs. I just wondered okay, well, how do we make this work? Because even if you look at the Diet Free Life methodology for what it is, many people you lose weight, but then sometimes it doesn't happen. And that's because our biochemistry changes, right? Our biology changes. And you weren't insulin resistant when you were 18, but you are at 44. And we know through study after study after study, we know right now that 88% of adults in North America are not metabolically fit. That's not my opinion. Those are accurate studies, data, solid. And what are we going to do about it? Well, I'm here to help you. All right. Let me see here. Any questions that I can answer right now while you guys caught me? Well, if not, anyway, I'm thankful for you. Do me a favor and share the good news. And if our information is there. If you got questions, just reach out and we will 100% reach back. Because a big part of our outreach, or AKA ministry, is doing that, is being in your corner and putting you in a position to win. And if we do that, I know I'm happy. All right. So again, this is Robert Ferguson, America's Fat Loss Coach, nutritionist, researcher, a guy who cares, and that's why we share. So until the next